Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing. He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Tighten up my meat.
I like my meat tight.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's Friday. You know what time that? You know what that means. It's time for a Friday show. Of course. Obviously. Just like Thursday means it's time for a Thursday show. Anyway, I don't know. I'm in a weird mood today. But we got a ton of stories to get through. And so I don't want to spend too much talking about how weird I am, because I think you already know that if you've watched for a while. Nonetheless, fun times. We're going to, fun show, interesting show, a mix of good news and weird news as usual. Look, we're going to talk about the fake electors, interesting stuff on that. We got cyber ninjas back in the news. Interesting. Fun times. We have good news about the gigantic oil and gas leases that were approved by the Biden administration through court action. Well, we've got good news on that. We have a mayor literally holding funding hostage for a library over the gay books. The books are too gay, like the frogs, and so we got to do something about them, and we got to remove them. We got to get rid of the gay books. Amazing stuff, right? And then Havana syndrome. You might have heard of it. What's the deal with Havana syndrome? So I'm going to talk about that. Yeah. So fun times. As usual, it's going to be a great show. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. It goes to help us out the reach. Because, you know how these big social media platforms have algorithms that don't necessarily treat independent creators all that well. So please like and share. Very important that you do so. Anyway, I went on about that enough. So let's dive into the stories. All right. It appears there could be some real consequences for some of the state and local Republicans who cast fake electoral votes for Donald Trump in the 2020 election. Now, again, this was part of that plot, that scheme to try to steal the 2020 election away from Joe Biden, the actual winner, and give it to the loser, Donald Trump. So now, according to HuffPost, 59 Trump electors who claimed to be duly elected and qualified could actually, on official paperwork, could face federal charges ranging from election fraud to mail fraud, in addition to a range of different state-level charges pushed by different states' attorneys generals. At least 2 states' attorneys generals are pushing the Justice Department to intervene, to make some charges, do some indictments. One of them includes my state of Michigan, so I'm actually proud about that. That's awesome. So now the State Department has admitted that it is actually looking into this, into the several states where Trump supporters had gotten together and basically sent out fake certifications that were sent through the United States Mail Service to the National Archives that claimed that the other people who had certified, they're not the real electors here. We're the real electors, and we're voting for Donald Trump. And so now, as I mentioned, 59. So now, what are the different states? In Arizona, you have 11 Republicans that filed paperwork falsely claiming to be the state's electors. In Georgia, you had 16. Nevada, 6. Wisconsin had 10. Michigan had 16 that had tried to file this fraudulent paperwork about the election. So now, what's interesting here is there's actually more than 59 of them that attempted to do this. However, there was some specific language. You see, some of the electors, the fake electors, were not as dumb as some of the others. And so let me give you an example here. So now in New Mexico, Trump supporters have put in, had filed this certification that began with a disclaimer. So now this disclaimer, the language in it is actually really important. They said that we, the undersigned, on the understanding that it might be later determined that we are the duly elected and qualified electors. So in there, they're saying, well, we're not actually the electors, but if by some chance the certification was reversed, then we would become the electors, and then you could count our votes. But we're not actually saying that we are the electors right now. We're not claiming to be. We're just saying that if something happens, then we would actually be the real electors. Okay, so now that disclaimer is kind of important, as you're going to see. Now, 20 Republicans in Pennsylvania also made it further clear that their paperwork was not valid unless the November 3rd election result was reversed in their state. They said, we, the undersigned, on the understanding that if, as a result of a final non-appealable court order or other proceeding prescribed by law, we are ultimately recognized as being the duly elected and qualified electors. Their paperwork began. So again, disclaimers, right? Disclaimers, disclaimers, disclaimers. Now in Georgia, they were not smart enough to have a disclaimer. Now that's going to be very relevant here, because if you happen to have the disclaimer, there's a possibility that it might, and I say might, protect you from certain charges, criminal charges. In fact, in Pennsylvania, it's already been determined that they had not broken the law, at least so far. In fact, State Attorney General Josh Shapiro cited this in his decision not to prosecute these 20 fake electors, saying, these fake ballots included a conditional clause that they were only to be used if a court overturned the results in Pennsylvania, which did not happen. Though their rhetoric and policy were intentionally misleading and purposely damaging to our democracy, based on our initial review, our office does not believe this meets the legal standards for forgery. And so, look, I get it. I understand the position that he took. He's like, look, yeah, of course they tried to, sign a paper saying, well, we believe that Trump won, and that, but unless we would like to be the electors, but if we're not, if you say we're not, ultimately, through court order or whatever, then we're not the electors. And so again, that basically might save them. Now, in Georgia, As I mentioned, they're not smart enough to have done this. So they don't have the disclaimer and therefore are open to criminal liability. Now, according to Glenn Kirshner, now what kind of, by the way, I'm getting ahead of myself. What kind of criminal liability? According to Glenn Kirshner, a former federal prosecutor, the potential federal crimes include forgery, obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to commit fraud, and because the mail was sent through the USPS, mail fraud. The more seriously the offenses carry prison terms as long as 20 years. Oops. Sad baby. Now, and by the way, that's not all of the possible charges. There could end up being more levied. This could just be the beginning. That said, there's more. Where it gets interesting, even more interesting, is the Trump connection. Now, Georgia, one of the fake electors, this is Georgia Republican Party Chairman David Schaefer, who said that it was Trump's lawyers in Georgia who told him and his group that they were not allowed to change the document, to put that little disclaimer in there that might have protected them. And so now he said that Trump's lawyers told him that any changes to the language they provided would endanger Trump's legal challenge in state court alleging fraud and other election quote-unquote irregularities. Fun. We were told not to alter the form by Trump's lawyers. Now, you know what that means? That means that Donald Trump told his lawyers, very likely Donald Trump told his lawyers, or people around Donald Trump told them, hey, we don't want you to change the document. Do it as is. Pretend to be the electors. Pretend to be the electors so that you can vote for us and we can steal the election. And that's it. And again, this plot already has a name, the Green Bay Sweep. I've detailed this on the show before, on previous videos. And basically the plan was outlined in a memo by lawyer John Eastman, shown to Donald Trump, supported by Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. Steve Bannon at the time was not a member of Trump's cabinet. However, Peter Navarro certainly was, and then went on to brag about it in his memoir. Well, congratulations. Congratulations. Well done. The smartest people, the best people. Now, Mike Pence was also aware of this, by the way, of this plan, and he basically ignored the fraudulent state certifications on January 6th, and that's following the mob that attacked the Capitol, once again, on orders, on tweets from Donald Trump, to try to intimidate him. Oh, Mike Pence, if Mike Pence, you got to do the right thing, or else we're not going to have a country anymore. Mike Pence, I'm calling on for you to reject the certification. He knew the plan, and he's like, nah, dog, I'm not gonna go along with this one. It's not gonna happen. For one, it's stupid, and secondly, it's not gonna work, and third, it's gonna get me in trouble. And so, Mike Pence, saving himself, well, of course, and ironically doing the right thing at the same time. Hey, those things can happen. Now, if the DOJ, look, I hope the DOJ indicts some people and goes into discovery and finds some other interesting links. We could find out more information that could implicate Donald Trump. The more, the better. The more evidence, the better. Bannon or other people that are involved in the scheme, and be able to build a really wide-ranging, gigantic, ironclad case against them. And if that's the case, watch out. We might actually have some accountability for them trying to fraudulently steal an election. Oh, and that would be wonderful. Imagine that. Accountability. I know, whisper of a dream, right? Moving on. Cyber ninjas. All right. It appears that Doug Logan, the CEO of the firm Cyber Ninjas, that ran the deeply partisan Arizona audit after Donald Trump had lost the 2020 election, is now in the middle of a protracted court battle. Now, what do they do? What's going on? So what are the details here? So now apparently he is in court trying to protect the records of the audit. Interesting. This is according to reports from the Arizona Republic. He had refused to turn over the records during a contentious deposition that happened earlier this week. In fact, according to reports, Logan had answered questions during a contentious deposition with attorneys for the Arizona Republic and American Oversight, reported Ryan Randazzo. The news organization and the left-leaning nonprofit have battled in court for months for the release of texts, emails, and other documents related to the ballot recount and related investigations of the 2020 election ordered by Republicans in the Arizona Senate. So now, Cyber Ninjas, as you noted, or as the article noted, yes, it was ordered by Republicans. And it was funded by the taxpayer. And guess what? It was also a gigantic waste of time. It was an absolute dumpster fire. As I've reported before, they had tried to prove a number of insane conspiracy theories. You got the bamboo ballots, right? That's what they were looking for. Oh, we're going to find the bamboo, and they're going to prove that China hacked the election. China did the election, and that's what they did. And then we're going to find that the Italians were involved, and the Iranians, and maybe the Pomeranians. They're there too, trying to steal the election for Joe Biden. We'll find the hair. We'll find the fibers on the ballots. And then you got to give us access to the machines. You got to give us access to machines. Well, obviously, they didn't get access to the machines because it would have been really, really dumb. I mean, why would you give over the machines? It's a total clown show. Total clown show. Absolute shitfest. Even at the end of it, they found no fraud. I mean, look, they couldn't even manufacture the slightest evidence of fraud. They couldn't even create it just to say, oh, look at what we found. No, they couldn't even do that. So, again, clown show. And by the way, the cherry on top was the fact that they actually ended up finding a few more ballots, uncounted ballots for Biden. So, and by the way, at the end of this, at the end of all of it, essentially what you had from the Cyber Ninjas audit was pretty much a mirror of the results of the official count. Basically the same. So congratulations, all that time, all that money. Now, the ironic thing is that Cyber Ninjas is like, you still owe us, Arizona, you still owe us $100,000. For what? For what? For, no, well, contract. Ridiculous, right? Ridiculous. So now, that said, there are people that want to see the records, obviously, to have a little bit of transparency into how they basically conducted that audit. I know we had a lot of leaks. There's a lot of leaks. Many people are saying that there were leaks. And so the Arizona Republic says, I want to see that. Well, let's see what you did, how you arrived to your conclusions, and what your methodology was, et cetera, right? But they said, no, we don't want to share our records. In fact, we're going to hide our records from you. And we're going to go to the Supreme Court. We're not going to release the records until you go to the Supreme Court. What is it? You got Mike Lindell wanting to go to the Supreme Court. And then now you got Doug Logan saying, I got to go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court. They're not going to allow you in. They're not going to listen to this case. It's garbage. Absolute garbage. So now, since they decided not to release this, even though they had a court order to release it, you ended up having leading Maricopa County Superior Court Judge John Hanna to find cyber ninjas in contempt and imposed a $50,000 a day fine against the company for not producing said records. Now that, of course, has had the result of completely wrecking cyber ninjas. Logan's response to it was, Hanna's November order to the company to turn over records was the result of a biased judge. Yeah, biased judge. How dare you? So biased, you actually want us to produce documentation. They added, the Arizona Republic did. Logan went on long soliloquies during the deposition on how he did not believe his company was obligated to turn over the records because they should not be public. Shouldn't be public. Well, wait, it's an audit of a public election in the midst of a massive disinformation campaign that was designed to put doubt on the winner of said election. And by the way, that disinformation campaign was also designed not just to put doubt, but also to allow fake electors to come in and to try to overturn the certification of that state and therefore hand over electoral votes to the person who did not win those electoral votes in order to put them as president, to steal power. Ridiculous, right? Ridiculousness. And so, that said, your company was hired to do this audit. So those records, I think they should be public. We'd love to know. We'd love to know. Now, the funniest part about this is at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure we will find out because cyber ninjas will be no more. They can't afford it. They can't afford to do anything anymore. They're literally broke and are shutting down. So that's awesome. Awesome. Now that said, do I feel a little sad for the workers there? I guess. Sure. But Logan, it's your fault. What were you trying to protect? What was important enough for you to literally set fire to your own business in order to keep these records hidden? Seriously. Especially since the report noted that CyberNinja's emails and Microsoft Teams messages are backed up in a specific server. And Logan said he is committed to pay to maintain that server even as the company winds down. We don't have any money for everything else. And by the way, we're not even going to pay our contractors. We're not going to pay anything except to keep this server that holds the information that you want in it. Fun. Very, very curious to see what's on that server and why they're holding so desperately onto it. Interesting. All right, moving on. We got so much more to cover. A tip line set up by the governor of Virginia to fight so-called critical race theory is being clogged by memes and song lyrics. So now on Monday, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin had announced an email tip line that encouraged parents to report that if any divisive practices such as critical race theory were being taught in K through 12 schools. So now, of course, they're not being taught in schools. They were never being taught in schools. It's a college level course. But hey, let's not let facts get in the way of a good conservative culture war freakout. And so what they did is that they just took the name critical race theory because it sounds, I don't know, scary to conservatives. And they said, anything that has to do with the history of African Americans in this country or minorities, if you teach about that, that's divisive, that's critical race theory. Oh, wonderful. So now, this newly elected governor stuck to his campaign promises, banned teaching it anyway in the schools, and in fact, that was his first executive order. The first executive order. Now, can you imagine, you got all these things going on in the state. You got inflation, you got the cost of living, you got wages, right? You got all these problems, and your first order of business is, hey, let's ban something from school that isn't being taught in school. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of taxpayer money. All right? So now, the response to this is actually pretty great because you've got young people, you've got activists that are actually trying to fight against this in the way that they can. So now one of them is Qasim Rashid, who's a human rights lawyer and a parent in Virginia. So he told BuzzFeed News that, quote, it's very telling that a tip line was set up to report teachers who are teaching children about racism and not a tip line for children who are suffering from racism, especially when neo-Nazis are marching through the streets. So now, of course, he tweeted about it. That tweet blew up. And since it did blow up, a lot of people saw it and decided they were going to do something about it. One of them is Sophia Ongole, who is a 21-year-old student activist. And she decided that she was going to create an auto-generated email format so that people could flood the inbox. He said, quote, as a black person, I know disinformation breeds hate and violence. The tip line is trying to vilify educators for literally doing their job. This isn't critical race theory being taught in school. It's American history. What Youngkin is doing is using this term as a boogeyman to sow fear and divide people, particularly among fearful members, ignorant and fearful members of his hegemonic class. So I don't want this tip line to exist. And so she coded a site that creates an email to the governor's email tip line with the name of an actual Virginia school mixed with song lyrics and pop culture memes, which is fun. In fact, here's a video of her on TikTok explaining.
So in case you missed it, Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, super Trumpy dude, recently made a tip line to report CRT being taught in Virginia schools. This is the email, and it would be really devastating if people blew it up. But moreover, it'd be really bad if someone made like an auto-generated like email thing where you just click the button and it makes an email. And it'd be really bad if it included an actual like high school that was in Virginia and some random quote or a song lyric, and then all you have to do is hit send. That'd be really, really, really bad. So whatever you do, don't generate an email using this link. Don't do it. Don't do it.
You're right. She's right. She's right. Don't do it. That would be a terrible idea. A bad idea to go to that website and click on that link. Don't do that. Don't go to that website. Don't click on the link. Okay? Don't do any of that. That would be very, very bad. I'm just saying, bad. Don't do it. I think the kids are going to be all right. All right. An elected official is engaging in cancel culture with their local library. So now this is according to Tanya Johnson, the executive director of the Madison County Library System. So now this is in, what is it? It's in Mississippi, I believe. And so what's going on here is that you have a Republican mayor, Mayor Gene McGee. And he is withholding about $110,000 in funding that was already approved from the budget, and he is withholding it from the county's library systems. Why? Well, or I should say, what does he want? Well, apparently, he wants the libraries to remove all mentions of the gay. Can't have the gay in the library. Got to get rid of the gay. So now, this all came about when Johnson was first confused why they didn't receive their quarterly payment from the city of Ridgeland. So now, being, as confused as she was, she decided to follow up with the mayor, Mayor McGee. So now, in that call, he told her that the library would not be receiving the money until it removed all LGBTQ content from their shelves. He explained his position, his opposition, I should say, to what he called homosexual materials in the library, and that it went against his Christian beliefs, and that he would not release the money as long as the materials were there. Well, isn't that like literal cancel culture? I mean, what what are these gay books doing here? I don't like them. I want to cancel them. That's what's going to happen. We got to get rid of the books because I don't like them. I don't like Jesus, Well, how about no? If you don't like them, don't read them. Look, the library isn't a church. It's a service for the entire community to enjoy. Now, when she explained that, here's what McGee responded with, saying, quote, "He only serves the great Lord above." Oh, okay. Then go be a pastor and get the fuck out of politics. Go serve the church. You would be well suited there. All right? Go do that. Religion is not a function of government. We literally this is the United States of America, where we believe in the separation of church and state. That's what a patriotic American does. We believe in the separation of church and state. I don't want my state dictating religion, and I don't want religion dictating what the state does. You imagine if the government had control over Christianity? I thought these conservatives were small government, right? Well, what's more big government than having the government dictate your church? I mean, the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. And again, unconstitutional. You are not allowed to withhold funding from a library that was already approved in the budget in order to try to push your religion on everybody else. They don't share your religion. I don't share your religion. And I don't care who you think you serve. Your job is to serve the constituents and, most importantly, the Constitution. Am I clear? I hope so. So now look, Johnson, in her interview with the Mississippi Free Press, said that McGee's outburst could be a reaction to some complaints that the library has received about LGBTQ content. So, of course, because you had some people that were triggered, got a little bit offended. Did they by the gay? By having books that are gay or something? You know what I want to do? I want to cancel them. Yeah, I want to cancel those books. I don't like them. I don't like that they're here. You are literally doing cancel culture. These are the same people that tune into Tucker Carlson when he rails about cancel culture. I can't believe they'd be canceling people. I can't believe Disney decided to cancel Minnie Mouse's dress. Oh, I can't believe my M&Ms aren't sexy anymore. Oh, what am I going to do? And now our libraries are filled with gay books. The books are gay. What's next? The frogs? Are the frogs going to be gay too? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Again, you don't have to read it. If you see a book that you think is, or that you won't like, or like, oh, I don't like the idea of that book. That looks like it sucks, or I don't agree with that, whatever. Guess what? You move on. You don't read it. You don't have to read the book. You're not required to read the book. But this guy, again, so triggered, so offended by this, that he's literally holding back about 5% of the library's annual budget. Losing it, Johnson adds, would definitely impact services and could even result in staff members getting laid off. Now, McGee, when asked, claims that he alone had made the decision to withhold the funds without the approval of the city's Board of Aldermen, who had already approved the budget. So that means that there could be some legal action. However, the library board will first speak with the Board of Aldermen before pursuing that. And so there's a way, of course, to get the funding to the library that this guy is unjustly holding up. And so we'll see how that works out. Johnson says that she doesn't anticipate the library acquiescing or bending to McGee's demands. Quote, ultimately, it is up to the library board, but I do not think they will make that decision. As a library, our mission is to serve our community and to provide everyone in the community with the information and resources that they need. Anyone can walk into a library and find something that they don't agree with. But the book that's not quite right for you is exactly what someone else needs. My job is to make sure that everyone has access to that. I love it. Let me just give a shout out to that librarian. She's awesome. I absolutely love it. Here's what she said. She added after that. We all live in this world together. We sit next to people in church. We work with people. We live next door to people. Our children go to school with children who don't look like us and don't have the same experiences. If we're going to be together, we have to at least understand each other's stories. Absolutely love it. I love it. Now, of course, the problem with people like McGee is that they don't want to understand. They want to dictate because that's all they want to do. They despise gay people and trans people and everyone else that isn't just like them. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't have that pathology. I can't really understand. Like I get like, oh, well, did they look at this and they think that it might be not be natural because it's in the Bible tells me so. Well, guess what? The Bible, I mean, against gay people, there's an outdated passage in the Old Testament. And you know what that comes from? It comes from the time from when the Israelis needed the soldiers to fight the Philistines and the Canaanites. And you know what that means, right? Babies. You need babies. You need more babies to grow up into the soldiers so that you could take over your neighbors. That's really it. So that, of course, means, well, I mean, if you're gay and you're in a gay relationship, you can't be making babies. No. If you're jerking off and you spill your seed, you can't do that. So we're just going to write in our laws that that's a sin, that that's bad, and God doesn't like that. No factual basis on reality. It's just people using God as an excuse like, hey, you better make more soldiers. Which, by the way, if Jesus died for your sins, isn't it all that absolved? Doesn't that not count going forward? I don't know. Religion is confusing, and I'm not a fan. But again, getting down to the point here, what this all comes down to really is that you have people that for no reason, no actual reason, just hate people for being different. I mean, these people have existed for as long as humanity has existed and will always continue to exist. No matter what you try to do, how much you try to, remove knowledge of them, like, for example, what Florida is attempting to do with their Don't Say Gay bill, they're not going to disappear, no matter how hard you try to stamp them out. It's just not going to happen. The gay is here to stay, and you better get used to it. Gay is here to stay. So good. All right. All right. The chief of staff to Republican Governor Kristi Noem recently made a bit of a shocking comparison, saying that the existence of transgender athletes is comparable to terrorism. Yes, terrorism. So now Mark Miller is the interim chief of staff to the pro-Trump South Dakota governor, and he made the statements in regards to Senate Bill 46. Senate Bill 46 would allow school officials to be sued over allowing transgender girls and women to participate on all-female teams. So this is one of those nonsense culture war issues that are happening, that conservatives have been glomming onto. Let's fight the gay, let's fight the trans people, let's keep them from, being able to participate in sports. And I love how they claim to be, oh, no, we're just looking out for the girls. We're looking out for the we're looking out for the girls in the team. We're being feminist. No, you're not. You're being anti in every single different way. Anti-feminist. All right, so now, more details here. Following public testimony in the House State Affairs Committee on Wednesday, Miller told lawmakers that even though the state has only seen one transgender girl perform during the last decade, the goal of the measure is preventative. Quote, it's sort of like terrorism. You see it over there, and you don't want it to get to here. Terrorism. Do you actually believe that transgender girls being in sports is the equivalent of Osama bin Laden? And you got to put a stop to it. What are they going to drone transgender athletes? This is ridiculous. Ridiculous. It's insane. Absolutely insane. Now, look, again, if you want to talk about fairness in competition, I get that. We all want it to be as fair as possible, right? You want people to be able to compete. Well, guess what? Sports is never fair. Somebody like me, I suck at sports. I'm never going to be good at sports. Now, am I saying that somebody, who has a natural advantage in sports, like somebody, I don't know, who's a little bit leaner, a little bit taller, I'm only 5'9", okay? If I could look at somebody at 6 foot and I look at him and say, you competing, you have an unfair advantage. You are Osama bin Laden. No, that's fucking ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Again, things aren't always going to be 100% fair when it comes to competition, okay? Again, some people are more skilled, some people are in better shape, some people are naturally being able to carry a little bit more blood, oxygen in their blood, etc. And you know what? We still have competition. You can still compete, and by the way, you can still win. So that's not the only determining factors in winning a contest, being strength, skill, etc. Yes, they are contributing factors, of course, but it's not the sole determinants. And by the way, the other thing is, and this is why teams are really important too. You have a team. Yes, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, right? So now a team is there to support, basically help you with your strengths and help minimize your weaknesses. And so that's the importance of teams, right? So like one person may be stronger, another person might not be as fast, or another person might be faster. You work together as a team. The whole point of team sports, right? So, and I say that because they're not letting trans women, trans girls go on these teams because, we think that they have a unfair advantage. While they may have some advantages, they also have disadvantages as well, just like every single other human. And by the way, the advantages that I mentioned are not nearly as large as conservatives or anti-trans activists make them out to be. A 2016 review of all the research into transgender athletes found no papers that provided any evidence of trans women having any athletic advantages over cis women. A 2017 analysis, a systemic review of literature relating to sport to participation in competitive sport policies, reported that, again, no direct or comprehensive evidence of transgender women having an athletic advantage over cisgender counterparts at any stage in their transition. There was another study done by Dr. Jack Turbin, a psychiatrist at Stanford University School of Medicine who works with trans youth, and Dr. Timothy Roberts, a researcher who analyzed the athletic performance of transgender Air Force members. Their results, inconclusive. We just don't have enough evidence. We don't have enough examples. Transgender people in sports, there's just not enough of them to really make a comprehensive study. And so you've got two things, already two meta-analysis that are saying we don't see any real advantage that trans women have over cisgender women. And another one saying, well, I don't know, there's just not enough data. And so, look, by the way, here's what Dr. Turbin said on that. It's not zero, but it's not a lot. And referring to the data, of course. And people will search far and wide to find an example of this being a problem. Well, that's how you know it isn't. Look, and by the way, I've also seen other studies where transgender women, according to some researchers, have still a little bit more muscle mass a year after transition. I believe they only lose about 5%, according to this specific study. And even if that's true, again, that's a year over starting hormone replacement therapy, HRT. Now, again, having a little bit more strength doesn't mean that you completely will obliterate any chance that a cis woman would have. And so, again, in the context of team sports and the fact that everybody's different, some of these advantages, potential advantages, don't always mean victory. I think it's actually a non-issue here. And I know that there are people who will cherry pick certain examples, one or two, because there's not that many transgender athletes, honestly, that have been famous or have been made famous. But you can count on basically a handful where you had transgender, swimmers, for example, that won in certain, or runners that have won. But then you can also look and see ones that have lost as well and have placed last, even in some cases. So, you can go and really pick out those anecdotes and cherry pick them. But in reality, again, it all means nothing at the end of the day. This is school sports. And I think it's insane that there's such a culture war focus on these transgender youth that are just wanting to not just compete, but again, make relationships, have friends, and I mean, friendships and camaraderie and being able to be on a team in a team environment. I mean, that's really the focus here. It should be the focus of, hey, they just want to be part of a team and be part of a group and have fun. But no, we can't have that. We can't have that. Apparently not in, anywhere, any of these schools. I just think it's a non-issue. Now, there's one current high schooler that also argued in favor of greater inclusivity. This is a female student, Brianna Brings Plenty from Little Wound, South Dakota. So she says, I welcome trans girls on my team because I know just like me, trans girls deserve the opportunity to play sports and be recognized and respected for who they are. Hera Kingi, who is also transgender and a former high school cheerleader from Rapid City, also testified saying, quote, not being able to participate would have been devastating to me. It would have stopped me from meeting my favorite people and making my most cherished memories. That's what they're fighting against. I mean, that's what these Republicans, you think that is the same as terrorism? To wanting to be able to do these things, and to be on these teams and to meet these people. You think them wanting to do that, to be a part of something, to be a part of a team who identifies as what they identify as, is the same as terrorism? You're mental. There's something wrong with you. But again, this is the Republican culture war. And that's all it is. It is a culture war issue that isn't actually against or in favor of fairness. The only thing they want to do is to appease ignorant followers that hate and that don't understand and hate trans people. That's it. And they do so, of course, in order to get votes and power from the ignorant. They made the same argument when black men started playing MLB, NBA, and NFL. Yes, yeah, oh, that's true. That's true. Very true. All right. Let me see if I can get to the golf deal very quickly and then get to Havana syndrome. Trans people are people too? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. A federal judge has put a stop to development of oil and gas in the Gulf of Mexico. So now, the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia recently invalidated a sale, which was one of the largest in the nation's history, of 1.7 million acres of oil and gas leases. So that's awesome. Now, they ruled, the judge had ruled that the Biden administration had violated federal law by relying on a flawed analysis of the climate change impact of drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. So this is fantastic news. More details. In his ruling, Judge Rudolph Contreras concluded that the Interior Department's Bureau of Ocean Energy Management had based its decision to hold the sale on flawed environmental analysis that miscalculated the greenhouse gas emissions associated with future oil and gas drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. Completed under the Trump administration, the analysis found climate impacts would be worse, and get this reasoning, if the acreage went unsold, because then oil companies with lower environmental standards would increase production somewhere else, leading to more greenhouse gas emissions. What? What? Okay, so basically, if we drill the oil here, well then, if we don't drill the oil here, then someone else is going to do it somewhere else. But they're going to have lower standards. But we have higher standards. We've got the standards. We've got the greatest oil companies, the best oil companies. We've got the high standards. See, we get the high standards for drilling. You guys remember when the ocean was on fire? Remember that? High standards. High standards. Look, it's the same everywhere. No oil company has higher standards than another oil company when it comes to drilling. That's ridiculous. Absolute ridiculous logic. Worst attempt. It's sort of like, hey, if I don't light your house on fire, well, then somebody else is going to light your house on fire, but somehow it'll be worse because I have higher standards. You're still lighting my house on fire. Please don't. But that's what we're doing. In a metaphorical sense, we're collectively lighting our house on fire by relying on oil and gas instead of actually working to develop renewables. All right? So now the model, the Washington Post continues, and the set of assumptions that produced this result were, quote, arbitrary and capricious, Contreras wrote, reaching the same conclusion as both the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit and the District Court of Appeals for the District of Alaska in previous cases concerning lease sales based on a similar analysis. The court believes, Contreras wrote, that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management's error was indeed a serious failing. I mean, yes, it's a failing, but it's not just like an oops. It's a no. See, we're just coming up with this bullshit reason because our whole purpose and the purpose of the Trump Energy Department was simply this: burn, baby, burn. Yes, let's drill, baby, drill, and burn, baby, burn. That's it. So now, thankfully, this can be reviewed now by the Biden administration. So now I'm hoping that the Biden administration will find that if they are actually serious about climate change, which they claim to be, that it might be a little bit better to keep it in the ground. I hope so. Now, the Interior Department, and this is what gives me a little bit of hope, okay? Because you've got Deb Haaland, for one, who's actually a progressive, the only progressive in the Biden administration. And she's been excellent. And so now the Interior spokeswoman, Melissa Schwartz, put out this statement, quote, she said that given the court ruling in Louisiana, we were compelled to proceed with lease sale 257 based on the previous administration's environmental analysis and its decision to approve the lease sale. So what she said basically is that this had already been approved. We had put an injunction in there when Biden first got into power, got into office, tried to put a moratorium on it. That was reversed. That moratorium was lifted by another federal judge, and that the administration was forced to make the sale, right? Now she's saying, well, we were compelled, but now we no longer have to be. We can do our own. And in fact, she said, we are now reviewing the court's decision concerning deficiencies in that record. Our public lands and waters must be protected for generations to come. We have documented serious deficiencies in the federal oil and gas program, especially in the face of the climate crisis. We need to take the time to make significant and long overdue programmatic reforms. Our work will be guided by law, science, and sound policy. So again, that makes me happy because I'm hearing programmatic reforms to the review process to ensure, hopefully, and this is my hope, that they no longer, when they make these reviews, they're going to find in the future that if we do any of these leases, if we pump any more of this oil out of the ground, that's too much. It's just too much. We've got to focus on renewable energy. I'm hoping so. And by the way, Brittany Hardy, an attorney for the environmental law firm Earth Justice, who worked in this case, said just that. Quote, we're confident that once they do emissions modeling right, given the climate crisis that we're in, they will reach the decision that leasing doesn't make sense right now. Now, another thing that makes me a little bit more hopeful is this response. This is a spokesman for the oil and gas industry's largest trade group, the American Petroleum Institute. Scott Lauerman, he just had this to say, quote, disappointing. Anytime, in my opinion, anytime that the American Petroleum Institute is disappointed, I consider that a win for the climate and a win for all of us. So I'm glad that these leases have been shut down. That said, does the administration have much more to do? Yes, absolutely. They have a lot more to do to curb the use of fossil fuels and to help us transition into clean, renewable energy. So let's get to it. Time's a-wasted. Havana syndrome. I can wait till Monday. I'm out of time. All right. Thank you, everybody, for going around the nation with me today. Really, really appreciate it. Let me read some super chats here. Gabby Mathis says, just imagine what we could have done with the money. I'm assuming that you're referring to Arizona, the Cyber Ninjas money that was wasted. Yeah, all of that money, taxpayer money going into just to fraud it. Ridiculous. Jonathan Leiter says, here's an idea. Don't like it, don't read it. In of course, regards to that story about the banning the gay. Gotta ban the gay books. How about not? Cancel culture. Cancel culture Republicans. That's all they have. Gross. Let's see. Over here to Twitch. Nothing here on Twitch today, but thank you for the super chats. Thank you for tuning in. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very, very important. Very important that you do so. Again, helps us out. All right, so everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Please have a great, great weekend. Remember, love you all. You know I do. We're just going to raid here into, let's see. We did it to a T raid yesterday. Raid into the Antifada. So we'll do that. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Love you all, and remember, change begins with you.
I will eat your ass.
I'm a fatty fat though.
There's some whores in this town.
Oh no!
We'll do it live.
Dumps.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.